feel free to interrupt with questions or post them in the chat.
Sure.
Okay, recording has started. Again, we're waiting a few minutes to see if anybody else joins the webinar, and then we will get into it. Can you see my presentation screen?
Yes.
Great.
Or well, I assume with the dog.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I put in a little bit of a lot of work to size that right for slides. Christy, well, I'll get an attendee confirmation at the end of this. If you could write in chat what company you're with, that'd be great.
Oh, sure.
Just for my reference, as much as anything else.
I'm sorry, I'm not seeing where the chat is.
If you're looking in Teams, it should be towards the top, a little speech bubble icon. You see the red leave button on the right and the red recording dot on the left?
I have a notifications on the top left.
Yeah, around there should be a chat bubble icon that says chat. Of course, as always, your screen may look a little different than mine, so it's kind of hard for me to walk you through it without connecting remotely.
Yeah, I have a chat thing, but it's not lit up for some reason. I wonder if I have something that's not allowed.
It's, if anything, on our end, a security preference on our end, maybe. Yeah, chat has been turned off for the duration of the meeting. What on earth? Let me reach out to the person who manages the meetings. Let me see if I can fix that. Again, for anybody watching the future recording, we are just waiting to see if we have more attendees today. We'll get started in just a moment. So yeah, that's on our end. That's a security permission. So chat should be enabled shortly. One of my team members who organized the meeting will get that turned on. We will not be using chat heavily and we'll be presenting the traditional way with my screen and my voice. But we'll have that available so you can post questions, and posting the name of your company is not particularly urgent either. Okay. So, Christy, and for those who might be watching in the future, my name is Tyler. I am one of the newest trainers here at Big Hairy Dog. I have learned from the best, Jeff and Liz and Daryl. Many folks have worked with them before. But I'm the baby around here till some of our new technicians get certified, then I get to call them the babies. I don't normally do a self-introduction on these beyond my name, but I've been doing tech support for a long time, and this is one of my first forays into training. So do my best to pause and have dialogue and engagement with my attendees. But feel free to just speak up and shout over me if I go past something you want to talk about. We'll definitely address your questions. If anything is not covered in this that's more specific to your environment, for example, we won't be talking about these scanners themselves, except how they do some interaction with the QuickBooks point of sale inventory system. I won't be demonstrating how to use inventory scanners on this webinar. So if you need more dedicated help with that, reach out to our service team. Either call our main number, or if you'll pardon my email that opened on the wrong window, I believe it's service@bighairydog.com. So send an email to service@bighairydog.com or tech@bighairydog.com if you'd like to receive more specific hands-on training with a trainer or technician from Big Hairy Dog for topics that aren't necessarily covered in this webinar. Specifically, again, I'm referring to inventory scanner devices. Okay, not very easy for me to demonstrate handheld at this time, but if we do want to do that, just reach out to our team. That's service@bighairydog.com or tech@bighairydog.com as well. Okay. Without further ado, we'll just do a quick run through of what we're going to cover, and then we'll start looking at QuickBooks itself. So PI, most attendees and viewers of the webinar will be familiar with the term physical inventory. It's the process of verifying or correcting on-hand item quantities in your point of sale. This is done with several tools and methods at your disposal, but at a base level, we stop selling and we count all the goods in the store, either by hand or with our inventory scanners, and get an accurate, up-to-date idea of our shrinkage and inventory control processes. Okay, I think almost every retailer is familiar with PI, whether it's a annual full store count or a smaller cycle count. We'll talk about both of those situations. If you're setting up a new store, we recommend doing a PI with all your new product anyway. That's a best practice to make sure that you have the best possible data in your system to go forward. And periodically, cycle counts are great because you shouldn't have to wait a whole year to find out that products are disappearing from your shelves without being sold, heaven forbid. So we definitely recommend it when you go live. We recommend it once a year, and we also recommend cycle counts, smaller, broken up mini physical inventories to help keep an eye or a thumb on the pulse of your inventory. Although for those of you who know first aid, thumbs are the wrong finger to use for taking a pulse. Don't want to read off what you see on screen here, but you know, those are your definitions. This is what we are going to achieve, is we're going to count your product in the store. All right. In QuickBooks Point of Sale, there are 5 basic steps. These have many more individual steps underneath them, but this should be your kind of checklist. You want to start the physical inventory, and I'll go over all of this in detail when we switch over to the software itself, okay? But we start the physical inventory. That one process, clicking the link, clicking the button, starts it, gives us to a point where we can start entering counts, printing count sheets, and saving our progress, okay? Store doesn't have to be closed. There are situations where you will pause an inventory, sell a product, and potentially have to recount that. I'll show you how QuickBooks Point of Sale recognizes that. It is a best practice that if you sell a product while you're working on a PI, that you recount that product. Okay. you know, the short and easy way is to assume, oh, I sold one, I'm going to take one off of my PI count. But the best practice is to go ahead and count it again. Never know if the customer rearranged something on the shelves or found something that you didn't. It's definitely in your best interest to recount if you sell a specific product. So step one, start a physical inventory. Step two, count the product in the store. There's two methods at a basic level. One is a paper count sheet. Pop it on a clipboard and walk around your store with a pen, maybe a basket or a cart, and start pulling items off the shelf and counting by hand. Okay. What tends to be more popular these days and what is gaining popularity is using an inventory scanner. This lets you scan the product, the code, on a shelf. It lets you move around the store more efficiently, possibly than taking a count sheet and going back to a computer to enter counts, right? You can enter all of your counts into the inventory scanner and then upload those into QuickBooks. The third step is just that, transfer your physical counts into the point of sale software. There's an upload step for the scanner. We won't be talking about that as much, except that it is a step because I do not have the scanners to demonstrate today, and we want to talk about a top level view of physical inventory. So scanners will hold a count throughout the store. You come back to your computer and you upload it. And the other method is if you're using a paper count sheet, you come back to point of sale after you've got your counts and you enter them using the interface provided. Again, just a moment, we'll go look at that and really get into the meat of this process. Now, after you enter your counts or transfer the counts to point of sale from your counting media, review them. There are several review tools. There are places that show you discrepancies before you finalize the PI. Once you've reviewed, identified discrepancies, recounted if needed, you, at the end of it, apply changes to inventory. I had 4 on hand, I counted 5, and the PI tool will make that happen. Generate a quantity adjustment memo, and you're in business again. Okay, you have 1 moment to switch to my point of sale software and my pseudo script. Right, I think everybody is familiar with this screen. Christy, if you haven't been on my webinar before, I like to point out the help menu. Not so much this one, or the help contents is great. But when we get in, I'll point out the shortcut button that'll take you straight into help documentation for physical inventory. That said, let's get started. I'm going to come back here and process a sale in a little bit to demonstrate something, but to start a PI, inventory, ribbon menu, click on it, and all the way almost at the bottom is start physical inventory. And just like that, we're ready to start counting. Now, a couple of things to note on screen. We have our I want to menu. Okay, I love this menu. Not everything is available right now. We'll revisit that. Print. I think most people are familiar with the basics of QuickBooks Point of Sale interface if they're on this webinar, but all of these buttons will be useful. Help. I love the help. We may not all love every aspect of the software, but this is very detailed help documentation. And when I have questions, I go to that. I read the manual. I'm not so stubborn as to say that I know everything. I want the gospel from the manufacturer, from the software developer. That's what this is. Okay, quick look at it. Everything you could ever need, right? I have 9 or 10 separate pages just for physical inventory. This is available throughout the software anytime. Okay, it's an excellent resource if you need to check details about processes that we talked about today. Okay, so we just did step 1. We started a PI. Didn't do anything except click physical inventory, but we are ready to roll. Okay, if you had prepped your scanner, you could just go out and start scanning. But today we're going to primarily focus on doing it the old-fashioned way with count sheets and entering our counts in the system instead of importing or uploading our counts. Okay. So first thing we'll do, we'll dial in on a cycle count so we have a small subset of items. All right, I would like to show you how to filter your PI list. This will help us print a shorter count sheet so we don't have to do our whole inventory on one sheet. I have already saved some filters. But here at the View drop-down menu, go to Create Filter. I did this for my departments. You may do vendor filters, any number of things, okay? I didn't do toys earlier. So click this button here, highlight that. You will be able to select your department. The same applies for vendors and other relevant similar filters. I'm just gonna add this, then I click Save. The other filters might be more relevant for your situation, but we're not here to go over all the filter elements and criteria today. We just want to get our PI done. So in my world, in my silly little store, I'm doing cycle counts by department. They leave me with fairly efficient, effective lists. I imagine most people have shelves stocked in close to or along department lines. So it might be a good place to start, but you can filter for whatever you want based on what you see on screen. If you want to just do a count of all your large sizes, go ahead and filter for that. If you just want to count product that you've received this year to make sure that this year's data is good going forward, do it. Totally your prerogative. After you select your filter, click Save and give it a name. Again, what I am doing is just building filters for my departments so that I can quickly pull up these lists and print count sheets. Okay. Now that's real easy. I mean, I could go count 50 cars right now, maybe not so easy. But we now have this in our list. These are not default items. You have to create these filters. But I believe for cycle counting purposes, again, it's great to set some of these up ahead of time so you have bite-sized portions for your cycle count. They are, a clear kind of focus or area in the store. And today we are going to work on our accessories, which in our case is a big hairy dog mouse pad and some shoelaces from Vans. You'll see some funny little idiosyncrasies with my store. I have 2 pairs of shoes that I wear regularly. They're Doc Marten boots and Vans sneakers, and that's about all I've got in my store, plus some laces, and a couple of silly toys. So I just have to explain my madness, and I think you'll get my method soon enough anyway. So at a base level, we have a filtered list for a cycle count, okay? You could take this and run. You don't need to print anything. You don't need to use scanners, but this is on your computer. You would like to probably walk around your store and take your counts. Well, how would we do that? We have inventory scanners that Big Hairy Dog can set up and train you on. We also have the count sheet. I think this is what everybody wants, is at a base level. Where's my count sheet? 2 places, all right? Quickest maybe is print PI worksheet, right? This is the PI worksheet. No barcodes for scanning like some folks may have seen in the past, but this is modifiable. Now, not necessarily in this screen. We'll go over another method to get here and modify how a count sheet looks so we can pull out extra information like UPC and ALU, user-defined fields, auxiliary fields, whatever you can think of. Okay, but this is just the count sheet and it pulls our filtered department onto the count sheet ready to print. Send it out to your standard laser printer and you've got a sheet to walk around the store. Okay, so this kind of falls into step 2, start PI. You're either gonna do what you need to set up your scanners, that's synchronizing your inventory on it so that the list that you're counting is available on the scanner, or print out this PI sheet, okay? I think physically counting items doesn't need much explanation, but that's what this section is for. You have an expected quantity and the actual quantity. Okay, simple enough. Print this, go around your store and count your product. All right. Now, I don't have one of these that I'm going to be leveraging today. We're just going to kind of freehand it, but that's what you should do is step 2 is count your product. Okay, you don't want to be going back and forth to point of sale to this screen just to enter 1 or 2 line items. Take that count sheet, filter it out, get small bite-sized chunks, enough for your staff to do when you're doing an overall store inventory, give each person a department, or print the single one-off cycle count for a single department or other filter criteria. All right, so step 1, start PI. Step 2, start counting. Either with your scanner or your count sheet. All right. Now, I'm not going to talk about importing scanner results into point of sale today. All right. Needless to say, it's totally possible, but I'm just going to focus on kind of best practices and manual entry. Okay. Real quick. So print PI worksheet. To get the worksheet quickly, I want to run a report, PI worksheet. And now I can modify this. Okay, it looks like my filter may not have applied to that. And I'm messing up my screen. There we go. So at this point, you could still filter this count sheet, either with the modify button and filter data, or just by filtering at PI and printing your filtered information there. Okay. We did a brief webinar on working on report editing. So you may want to look into that. I'm not sure that recording made it up to the website yet, but we can always help you with report customization as needed. We can add extra columns. We can change some of the fonts and the spacing, etc. All right. So if you like how your report is already formatted, just go through the print menu with your filter at PI. If you need to make some adjustments, that was I'm sorry, we're in the reports module still. Back in PI, I want to run a report. Okay, clicking on one of these takes you to the relevant report for editing. And then when that's set up nicely, go ahead and print the count sheet. We'll talk about the differences in the detail report later. So we've gone through the store now and we've counted all of the laces and the mouse pads. And guess what? I found a mouse pad. And you know what? I found all 10 of those, but I only got 9 of these. And I got 10 of those, only 7 of these. And somebody walked through my door and I need to make a sale. Oh no. Well, save and continue. You may do this at any time after you've entered your first count. The save and continue button down here at the bottom right will highlight, will not be lit up blue until you have entered counts. We'll go ahead and hit enter. We see though, I'll get to my customer in a minute. They can wait, they're in my imagination. So I think they'll be fine waiting at the counter for a moment. We see that we have a difference quantity already entering, right? It's simple math, difference between expected and counted. But we're already able to see discrepancies, right? Very clearly. So this might be a reason to go recount something. I could reprint this sheet, or I could go do some more counting, or I could keep entering quantities. Now that said, there's a customer waiting at my counter while I'm in the middle of PI and all my staff are at lunch, something like that. Any given scenario, you can pause your PI. Just click save and continue. Now, this person called me earlier. I know that they wanted some white shoelaces. Well, I went ahead and made a receipt. I rung them up for some shoelaces. would need to unhold. And we're just going to cash it out. You know, $10. Give them their change. Save only. Excellent. All right. But that product was in the department that we are counting, right? Now I hadn't necessarily entered a count for that one yet, but this little concept will apply regardless on whether you enter a count or not. If you have to put a PI, physical inventory process, on hold and you sell an item that's in your PI, then you will get a notification. So when I came back to inventory, it cleared my filter out. This is why I recommend creating and saving them, because it's very quick for me to go in to my accessories department. And here we go. And what's this? Okay, so I think this was the product that I sold for demonstrative purposes. Now, expected quantity has already changed from 10 to 9. If I had entered a count already, however, we would see a notification, a little warning glyph, an icon right here on the left next to the item number that would tell us, hey, the quantity has changed on the item that you counted. Okay, go recount or verify and make doubly sure that this looks correct. Expected should change. If it hasn't been counted yet, you're not going to get an error message. All right. But just note that you can pause your PI, sell product, even if it is on your count sheet, and the system will generate a notification. And all that notification does is tell you that the quantity has changed for that item. Something happened to that item while you had a PI running. Okay, so that's your notification to recount. Either go do your detective work in your documents at point of sale and track down the sale that it occurred on, or, you know, best practice again is to recount that product. It's a pain, but it is the safest, most accurate way. I mean, that's the whole point of the PI, is we want real world totals, right? Wasn't able to get, like, my planned demonstration didn't quite work right. I should have entered a quantity counted before I sold that item. So just know that if that's the kind of thing that happens, if you have a counted item and you make a sale, you get a notification. Just a warning, don't have to do anything about it. It's not going to stop you from continuing PI. But it should be your cue to double check sales documents, transfers, purchasing, or just the stock on the floor, right? Give it an extra count. Let's go ahead and enter the rest of our information. And we've already got some discrepancies. Let's not go crazy. I mean, I'm counting 100% accurately, right? We're not breezing through this just because it says 10 and expected. I have counted these. That's what we want to reinforce to our staff who are going to be helping with this process. You know, it's easy hours. Yeah, you're on your feet walking around the store, but you're not mopping, right? Nobody likes PI. So most people have to close the store. They stay late. They double, triple, quadruple count certain products because they run into discrepancies, and that discrepancy changes every 45 minutes. You know, so it is in your best interest to just make sure you count accurately. It's not to get through this. This is you auditing your store. Oh, there's our notification. Okay. So I entered a 9, but if I had counted 10, we would just see this little icon. Even if I had entered 9. Okay, it knows that since the PI started, this changed. Now the change was reflected in expected, but this is your cue to double check. This means something changed with this item since we started PI. We know that we just sold that on a receipt right now. So there's your warning. Here on the left. I just found out how I could make this happen too. It's my new favorite thing. All right. So we've got our counts on PI. Let's review them. Okay, we've noted that there was a warning because we sold a product. So we've gone and double checked that product on the shelf, and yep, still mine. It's all good. Down here at the bottom right is the quick review section. And again, maybe I'm not ready to finalize. Maybe I am bone tired after counting 100 products. Hope not, but you can save and continue and pick this up later. Okay. Be careful though, because save and continue is right next to this, and this is our big red button, apply changes to inventory. This is our final step. Now before that, we want to review. What does review entail? Well, we will see just counts. These are quantity numbers. These aren't line item numbers. It's not telling me that I have one that was more than expected. It tells me that overall there's a discrepancy of +1 in some items. Okay, this is a running total of positive discrepancies. This is a running total of negative discrepancies at the inventory unit level, not at the line item level. It's not telling me that I have 4 lines that are wrong. It's telling me that I have 4 units that appear to be wrong. Okay. You know, your net difference, your price, your costs. Of course, this just is an extended price and extended cost. But, you know, this is important information. You really want to pay attention. I would consider a -4 a pretty big discrepancy. You know, not everybody would, but my little rinky-dinky store, you know, is basically out of the trunk of my car. Like, where did those 4 go? But at least we have that information readily available, both in the difference quantity up here and then price and cost information. You don't need to do anything to apply this to make this visible. Okay, this builds up its numbers and will adjust itself over time as you enter your counts. And again, it's just doing an extended price and an extended cost calculation so that you know how much money these discrepancies are affecting you. That's a week worth of gas. If I'm selling stuff out of my trunk, that's a big deal. I drive a little car too, so I could probably fit 50 pairs of shoes and drive around for $30 a week. I'm lucky. Here we see a pop-up tooltip. It's just telling you about the mark, right? This mark indicates items whose expected quantity has changed since the physical was first started. It is strongly recommended to recount these items. Learn more will take you to the help documentation, my favorite thing. Checkbox, show only items that have changed, is fantastic because it filters out all the rest. Now note that it removed my view filter up here, okay? But this is great because it lets you see, you know, if you're counting your whole store, it's not going to be one product that's sold. You know, you might have 20 products that sold in the last hour. So you'll just be able to go, you know, review as you go. Now, that said, there's a reason people don't do PI while they're open for business, and this is it. We don't want to recount if we can avoid it, and this is almost a guaranteed recount if an item is processed in a transaction or another document, right? So just note that this will show up when this shows up, and you can quickly filter for the items that may have potential discrepancies or have been transacted upon. Okay, we'll turn that off, and I can just quickly switch my view over to accessories. We are still at the review process. Well, what other things would we like to review? Well, here's a good time to talk about the other filters. These are the default filters. Okay, now that I'm reviewing, let's take a look at the product only that I've counted. Okay, there's different usage scenarios for these, but they help you narrow your list, right? If you're looking at discrepancies, if you're doing a cycle count, you know, you can leverage these filters and leverage this and print out a new small count sheet to go and tackle your discrepancy items. All right. Oh, I've got different numbers than I expected. I'm going to print a new PI worksheet and go count those again. I'm going to go make my staff do it. All right. before we apply changes to inventory, let's look at the other reports. Okay, we have a detail report and a differences report. I think they're fairly self-explanatory. This is just presenting you the data that you already had on screen in PI, but it would be useful after a PI if you've accepted your discrepancies, right? We want this report to go reconcile against accounting or to go look through our adjustment memos and our transaction documents, follow up on these specific items, after we're done counting. Yeah, I counted 10 times and I only have 9 of those laces. All right. Again, by going to I want to run a report, A, we can look at previous times, B, we get the current reports, and then the most important and useful thing is I can modify this. All right, we didn't talk about the detail report yet. Differences. So I can modify, I can add, remove columns. This might be useful if I'm working with my accounting team. Add whatever you want. Save and run. More information. There's a lot of things that you can do. Although QuickBooks Point of Sale is somewhat limited in terms of report customization, there's still a lot that you can do when it comes to bringing more information onto your screen in a report. Now this one is pre-filtered because that's the way the report runs. It's only looking at the current PI product with differences. All right, if we do the count sheet, we can set up filters and print our count sheets based on filters. That's the PI worksheet. All right. PI differences report. This is the report center, which I've talked about in a previous webinar that is not currently up in a recorded format. We're going to try to get that there. The third report is the detail report. Frankly, not much different than the other one, but we start getting more item level details, size and attribute. I believe they may have displayed, but this is basically the same as a differences report without only looking at difference items, right? We can still adjust our columns. These columns were probably all present on the differences report, but this is just showing us the overall items counted on our PI. Okay. If an item is not counted, it's not showing here. Right. So we've reviewed and we don't like that we have discrepancies, but it is what it is. This is why we do PI, so that we find these kinds of problems, right? If we are looking at all items and we are only counting specifics, okay? If we apply changes to inventory, we don't want to zero any of these out unnecessarily. So be careful with this checkbox, because even if you are filtered, and you hit that, we just put zeros in our entire inventory. This is not good for cycle counting. It's good for full store, but you should consider this checkbox only useful if you know that you've counted every single SKU and product in your store, and there are some things that are simply out of stock. Okay, that's its intended uses. So if you know you have product that's out of stock and you're confident that everything else has been counted, you can set all items not counted to zero. If I were to apply changes to inventory, I would take a big ol' loss and I'd have to undo or make quantity adjustment changes for all of these products. That said, I've tried to switch up my phrases, but sometimes we have to lean on some. So that said, We can undo what we did, and a physical inventory can be reversed. Okay, if something happens by mistake and the whole PI is gone into the garbage, gone to the dump, we can reverse it and start over. Okay, all of our quantity changes be unapplied, and we can do them again. Okay, so we know that we can zero out product manually. We can set all items not counted to zero. We wouldn't do this unless we're absolutely certain it's safe. Okay, but it's there. A side note, there is another tool used for counting product in if you have a barcode scanner. Okay, so let's filter over to toys. I'm going to include toys on this PI. All right, we have another tool in the form of add counts by hand from the I want to menu. There's really not much difference in this to entering counted quantities at the PI itself, but this is great because I can scan a product. What is one? I don't even remember. What is, I think I have an item 64. I don't know, we'll just do the car model. 100, going by the item number. This could be just your barcode number. You scan it in. Please note this text up here, after pressing the enter key, it's going to take you to the quantity. Okay, that's where I want to be right now, and I can say I counted 51 of these cars. All right. Otherwise, if you do add item, you will not be able to target unit of measure for items you add to the count. Toggle unit of measure. Now, in my version of QuickBooks, it's not the pro level. In the pro version, unit of measure is a factor. So, and that ties into some inventory management concepts such as cases and units per case. Okay, I'll briefly talk about how the pro version will interact with cases. If you have different lookup numbers and UPCs in your inventory, these are not separate line items, but they're considered an alternate UPC or alternate ALU in the specific inventory item. You can list a UPC or an ALU for a case of product. You enter the quantity of single units that is reflected in that case, and then you now have a UPC that you can print, or a barcode that you can print with that special case number that the system will recognize as, you know, a case of 24 cans, right? The system requires you to set up those case sizes ahead of time, but it will do the math for you. So if you scan a case of 24 and the system knows that that barcode is a case of 24 of one of your items, it'll count it up to 24 items. So it's not counting costs, cases. The count sheet will not be your units of measure. They are going to be individual units of the product, not cases. Again, the cases and unit of measure, that's a pro feature only. QuickBooks Point of Sale 19 Pro. Which is why we don't see it on screen here, but you would see unit of measure, excuse me, and case quantity, I believe, underneath these two. So I'm not going to turn that on right now. But back to this menu, and if I hit enter, it takes me to quantity. Otherwise, it adds the item down there. Add. There we go. Okay, that's what it would do. Just enter it here, and you can still edit the counted field. All right. This is manual counting. So you're sitting up at the register and you got, you know, cases of candy and gum and hair ties and whatever tchotchke you might be selling at the register. You can scan it, enter a quantity, go down the list. I didn't know I sold water balloons. I found 5 of them in the back room too. I mean, individual water balloons, that's kind of silly. Let's not overthink this one. I would be selling bags of water balloons. And I'm enough of an environmentalist that I'd want them to be made out of, like, you know, lamb's wool or food byproduct. Like, thank you. But I digress. I found 5 bags of water balloons as well in the back. Oh, look, I did have them listed as a 50 pack. Okay. That's one of the issues here at the PI screen is we have lots of information, but not necessarily descriptive information about the item. Okay, so this is a good way if you are a small shop and you bring up a basket of goods that you just pulled off the shelf and you're sitting behind your counter counting product. You use this add counts by hand window. So I'm going to save this. Note that you can remove. Note that there's a help link. But that was, I want to add counts by hand. Right? And when I closed that, or rather said okay, brought my counts in, we've got differences and discrepancies. And I can now filter and I can see, hey, there's my cycle count, everything that I've counted. Right? Review this. Yeah, 32 bucks a week of gas. Well, it's not 320 or 3,200 bucks. You know, what am I missing? Some shoelaces? Oh yeah, we had to tie the door open the other day. I don't know. Well, I didn't know we got water balloons. It must have been the toy vendor leaving us a gift in the back room. Okay, whatever. We could still pause this at any time. We don't have to finalize, but we do want to make sure that we've reviewed and we've entered all of our counts, at least for the cycle count. We want to make sure that we have not set zeros to anything that we did not count. Okay, I don't have any women's apparel or shoes right now. I'm sorry. For demonstrative purposes, I have the departments, but I only have Doc Marten boots and Vans in my inventory right now. So we just want to make sure that anything not included in our cycle count is left as a blank. That will not cause any change to the current on hand. If we're doing a full store inventory and you know that you have counted every single darn piece of product in the store, you're welcome to set all the rest to zeros. You know, you'll have to go figure out what happened when some products go from 5 quantity to 0. You know, you'll have a discrepancy there. You know, a negative discrepancy and associated price and cost problems. So use this button sparingly, okay? And make sure that you don't enter a 0 where not intended, because it will zero out your on-hand quantity and potentially cause more problems than are solved by PI, especially if you get heavy-handed, right? We don't want to do that to ourselves. That's almost a $50,000 mistake at cost. So be very wary using that checkbox. It's better if you're doing a small cycle count to just zero out a specific product. You've counted that. There is none of these green size 10s in our store. There are none. Okay, that's a problem. But I can also just clear that out if it was a mistake, leave it blank, and no change to on-hand inventory will occur. All right, let's take a final look at everything that we counted. Right? A quick note, if you are filtering by department, okay, I could be using the accessories view, hit this checkbox, and I might think that it's only going to apply to the product in this counted view. Okay, that is not the case. This would affect all departments. Okay, this is only for full store counting and use it very sparingly. Set all items not counted to 0 is a dangerous option. We're not going to use it today. So we know what we counted. I'm okay with all of this. Apply changes to inventory. If you'll pardon me for a second, I want to make sure that I've talked about everything I really need to. Yep, we did our add counts by hand, all of the reports, and we've talked about the review process, so let's do it. Okay, Now I used a counted only filter, so it should only show me product with a value in this column. But if you're using another filter, this pop-up will warn you. You may have other item counts. Let's see all items. Go through your whole darn list if you have to. Make sure that you don't have zeros where you don't want them. Okay, little time consuming, but that's why we're doing PI. We're going to take the time, make sure that our inventory is accurate and correct, and it'll be to our benefit. We can identify shrinkage problems. If we can find stock that is not on shelves, that needs to get out on shelves, it's worth it to perform your due diligence, making sure that you don't enter zeros, making sure that if you sell a product, you recount it. Then in the end, we get good data, good information. There may be discrepancies. That's why we're doing this, is to identify this anyway. Okay. I think the net difference is kind of silly, but at least it helps me reconcile a cost issue in my head, right? So apply changes to inventory. Again, the previous pop-up said, do you want to view all inventory? And I said, yes. Then I had to do that because it's going to make you review. All right. You can still click apply changes again, but it's going to take your filters off and show you all items. All right. Selecting yes will update inventory quantities for all items that have a count entered. Adjustment memos will be created to record any changes in quantity. Continue. Yeah, I am so glad PI is over. I am not counting another pair of shoes. Thank you very much. Right? The previous window just was a confirmation that changes have been applied. It will now automatically prompt you to view a report. Okay, you could skip it. You could don't ask again. I wouldn't. I think at this point, I want to review my discrepancies, maybe make another round of counting with the product that's still a discrepancy. Maybe just print this out for my records or to take to my accountant. So here we go, run report. And you know what? It's just going to try to print it. So that's why we want to set up our reports in the report system ahead of time. Because if I needed to make any formatting changes at the end of the PI, I just don't get a chance to do it right now. You can always rerun this report though, okay? Now that it is a finalized PI, we can run a detailed report for previous physical inventory processes. Okay, this now classifies as a previous PI. So we'll, in the report center, run previous PI reports and merchandise items. Center. Little surprised that PI wasn't there, but that's all good because you don't have to leverage this. We could just go back into PI. So inventory, start physical inventory. We're not going to do anything with the PI, but come to I want to, run a report, and now we have detail report and difference report for previous PIs. I believe this only pulls the last PI that you did. But there it is. These are the differences from what we counted to what we actually had from the PI that we just ran. Right? This can be exported to Excel, can be printed, do what you want. Let me see. I don't know if I have any more bullet points to cover. Christy, my lovely attendee, any questions for anything we went over? Anything you want to drill into or see demonstrated or dig deeper into? We can talk about reports. We can talk about filters. I have a little bit of information about PI scanners, but I don't have any specifics for specific models today. I will point out, and Christy, interrupt me anytime. So I'm just going to keep talking. I will point out in the help section, when you are looking at PI information, use physical inventory scanner. here's some information about the 2 types of scanners that we can provide and help set up. All right. So further information is in QuickBooks Point of Sale Help under the Inventory, Count Inventory, Use a Physical Inventory Scanner section. Right.
Sounds great.
Again, I love this. So as you use QuickBooks Point of Sale, otherwise, there is so much information, and I don't mind that some of it is redundant. I don't mind that some of it is short format versus long format. I love having the information. If I'm not sure of something and I don't want to call Big Hairy Dog because Tyler's mean, this information is all here for your benefit. I would also like to note that Big Hairy Dog has a chat room at bighairydog.com. Okay, it's a great tool if you have a question to get tech support from us without, the usual call that would bill you for minutes. There is a chat room, it'll pop up. I always get a little self-conscious with all my bookmarks and the fact that our chat room doesn't load up immediately. But down here at the bottom right, there should be a chat window that pops up. And that will get you a real live human being. One of our certified technicians or trainers is going to reply to you quickly. This is an unbilled initiation. There may be times where we have to convert it to tech support time. But this is one of our free methods to ask simple questions. So come to the website and chat with us during a business day. That's one way. You can also send your emails to us. There's 0 charge for having an email conversation with a technician or trainer here. tech@bighairydog.com, service@bighairydog.com. Christy, or anybody watching this, if you'd like to reach out to me directly, I'm Tyler T at bighairydog.com. That's TYLERT. Just like you see, I'm driving like a maniac right now, pardon me. But reach out to us with your questions. We like to answer questions. We like to help you get your processes handled. We like to empower you to run your own business. We have a philosophy here. We'll work ourselves out of a job, give you as much information as you need to be dangerous, but always be available if you need to come back for more. If you are doing a PI overnight and you can't get a hold of Big Hairy Dog during regular service hours and you are unsure if you will need the tech support during physical inventory, we have a service called Rent a Tech. There is a slight added cost because it is after hours support for us, but it is cheaper than a generic after hours support call. Because we are 24/7. You'll always get somebody. Today it happens to be me. I'll be up all night looking at my phone. Just kidding. But we can provide a rent-a-tech, and for PI, it's one of those things that's probably the best use of a rent-a-tech. We'll have somebody dedicated to you on call, expecting your calls, and you can call them as much as you want during that time. It does vary from our standard after-hour rates, which incur significantly higher billable time costs for each successive call. If you're calling after hours, that's after 6 o'clock Pacific time and before 6 o'clock Pacific time, PM and AM. So 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Pacific time. Don't worry about it. You don't need to rent a tech unless you really, really, really want to. You can schedule an appointment for us during a business day and we'll have a tech available all day to help you. But for after hours, if you're doing PI at night, Rent a Tech is a fantastic service that could save you money if you're at all concerned about the process, about your tools, or anything like that. We can make a tech dedicated available to you and try to save you money with after hours tech support calls. It's called Rent a Tech. Reach out to our service team if you ever need to do that. We also have the PI scanners. I couldn't tell you how many of them we have, but we can facilitate purchases or sell them ourselves. I think we also have a rental program just for, single PI runs. So get in touch and stay in touch. And we'll help you get through everybody's least favorite thing, physical inventory. Right. And that actually makes it a nice clean 1 hour recording. Any questions, Christy?
No, I think I'm good. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks for sticking around the whole time because nobody likes PI. I'm glad you were able to get information out of this. There will be a recording of this also available at our website. That's the Customer Center, bighairydog.com Customer Center. Upcoming webinars and previously recorded webinars. I don't believe we have any more QuickBooks webinars until August. Well, we'll talk about the XZ out reports. But these are all free to all of our customers. And if you're ever curious, just join in one anyway. And again, previously recorded webinars right here, right? We're going to keep this list going. I'm the newbie. Okay, our reports webinar is there. You'll have to forgive me if we just got Debbie. She joined us at the tail end. Hi, Debbie. I'm sorry, we're just wrapping up. But this is recorded. Feel free to chime in. You know, we're in question and answer mode right now. But this will be available at the Big Hairy Dog website under previously recorded webinars. Now, Christy may be hopping off, but Debbie, I will stay connected if you missed the webinar and want to talk about PI with me.
Can you hear me, Tyler?
I can hear you now.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, if you have a second, I have a couple questions that I would love to run by you.
Of course. And
then
Christy, you're
I'll go
welcome to
back
stay
and
along.
watch it.
No worries. Oh, she just took off anyway. So you don't need to worry about making anybody else bored right now. This is all recorded. So yeah. What do you want to see? We've gone through the basics. We didn't go over much about scanners for PI.
So we're kind of in the pre-inventory stage
Yeah.
right now. And so what I'm curious about is so we're doing our offsite inventory first at our warehouse, and we're not really sure how to deal with, like, we're having some unrecognizable things which we're troubleshooting, but there are a few places where the scanner gun, I'm sure, is picking up a SKU as a quantity.
Right.
And so if we go and view counted items, I know I can change it to the right quantity once we figure it out. If somebody like transposed a number on a SKU, is there any way to fix that in there before we finalize it?
I mean, if we're talking about a tag, I mean, at one level, you need to work on the tag design, right? If it's not scanning correctly, then that might be related to the inventory tag itself. If you are worried that you scanned the wrong product because of a SKU, then I mean, the filters are very powerful, but you'll probably have to still manually make that adjustment. So I was demonstrating some of the filters. You can build, I'll show you real quick how to get this list populated because these departments are not available by default. But this would be the quickest way to get through your system to find the product that you need to change, right? You have an item number or a department or some other descriptive information. Now to get it on that list, right, if I wanted to add a vendor,
Okay.
you save it. You just save it.
So what I've been able to find is these would maybe be older products that the tag is so old that it's, it didn't scan. So they've hand entered the item and say transposed a number. So it doesn't exist in our inventory because they flipped a number or it's not what it should be. Does that make sense? So instead of like maybe the number is 7236, they entered it as 2736. So then it doesn't recognize it because we don't have any item 2736. But we do have a 7236.
I don't think I can just add a new temporary product or like add an appendix at the end, right? Where I have unknown items. But I think the filters may help you get closer to the mark on what happened. Now, of course, if the product has been deactivated in inventory and it doesn't exist, it's not going to be anywhere in the filters.
Right.
Yeah, I don't have like a special notes section or extra items. What I do have is the count sheet, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can always manually print a count sheet and just write something on the bottom of this, but that's hardly elegant.
And then that's going to be like an addendum to the final report anyway, right? Or does that
Right,
go?
and I mean, well, so the printed count sheet, the worksheet, doesn't do anything by itself. It's just scratch paper for you to write your quantities on as you're counting by hand.
Oh,
This
right.
is
So
not necessarily
yeah,
intended for scanner use.
right. So we have created, something that goes on every bin and every shelf and every different thing. But I guess so. Sounds like to me what we need to do if somebody's transposed a number, we basically just need to delete that and re-enter it correctly.
Yeah, you'll probably need to do that. The good news
Okay.
is I've already finalized PI for training purposes, but I'll show you right now. If you start a PI and you've got partial counts in, you can
Which
pause
we do.
it.
Okay.
You can pause it, save and continue, close. Now I can go build an inventory item if I need to.
Okay.
And this is inventory, start physical
Right.
inventory. And it just picks up where you left off. There's no list of PIs. It's one PI that you're working on.
Right. And that's what we've been doing with our offsite inventory. She's coming and downloading the scanner guns every day. We're looking at the the errors, the unrecognized things or
Yeah.
whatever, and dealing with each one because we're not doing our full physical inventory until the end of the month.
Oh yeah, no, well, and definitely practice using cycle counts. So again, that's what's great about the filter is I can just, excluding these, which are good for the review process, is I can filter. This was what I was demonstrating and training earlier, this
Okay.
department. I can
Mm-hmm.
filter and I can print a count sheet just for the filtered items.
Okay, perfect. So
And
that's how
so
you
that's
do your circle,
a quick
your cycle count.
yeah, a cycle count. And again, this is not using scanners, but when you import items to scanners, you can theoretically import using filters too, so that you're only scanning for departments. I mean, if you're doing a scanner, just put all the product on there anyway, and make sure your staff stays in their corner of the office.
Right.
That said, if you do find product in different areas in the office, the scanner should get a collated total or an accumulated total and apply that together instead of overriding each other. And then this extra tool here, add counts by hand, you can enter
Okay.
SKU 100, 5 of
Okay.
those, 51 of them, and I can do it again, SKU 100, 3 of those.
Okay.
This
So
will
that would be
consolidate.
perfect.
Right, and this will consolidate. So if you do have products in different areas, and this is the hand process, but there might
Yeah.
be some bits that are applicable to you because you'll want to fine tune and refine and review. That's a key part of PI is
Right.
review what you've done so you don't have to count more than you need to.
Right. So
Yeah.
that's probably where. So the other instance we've had already is so our warehouse manager who's entering doing the scanner guns and blah 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 from the warehouse uh actually ended up deleting a day's counting
Oh,
and had already deleted the scanner gun. Luckily she had printed it out because I asked her to print out anything that had exceptions or so we could
yeah.
look at it together. So if I have the printout, I could actually go to this enter by hand. It's really like only a page and a half. It's not as painful as it sounds.
Right,
I
right.
could enter that all back into the inventory that way.
Right, and instead, this is just the filtered view. So this is your base PI. You can filter and enter the product counts here. But yes, if you've got a list and you've got your SKUs or
Enter by
your UPCs, add accounts
Mm-hmm.
by hand, enter the
Okay, I see.
SKU or whatever number, and you enter your quantity.
Perfect.
And
Perfect.
you
That
can
would be
enter individual products multiple times. Right, that was the example with item number 100.
right.
And it'll take a consolidated count from here and apply that here. So if you have counted at 25 once and 3 times the other, you get a 28 over here. All right.
Okay.
So
that was our one of our main questions that I was hoping to come away with from this.
So
Because we worked with
yeah,
Conrad last week, but then we started, we've just had so many more questions. So
yeah. Well, I'm glad you snuck
I was
in
able to sneak
while
in.
I was still here. Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
only had one attendee, so I would have been off the call.
Oh,
You came in just the nick of time.
perfect. And I will
And
go back and watch the recorded
yeah,
version as well.
there should be a notification or some kind of email. I will
When it's
download a
ready.
meeting attendee list, so we should be able to send notifications to the attendees. But yeah, check back at the website, and we'll show you again where you can find that.
Because I think there
do
is
not
an older one that is still on there, but maybe it'll go away when they.
possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I hope not, because I was one of my blurbs at the beginning of the training. I'm the baby trainer, so there may be things that I missed. You may want to watch that video as well. It's
Okay.
bighairydog.com, customer center,
Perfect.
previously
Training
recorded webinars.
webinars. Okay. Perfect. I will do that. Thank you so much for
Fantastic. Yeah.
staying a little extra and walking me through that. I really appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for joining and giving me some more information to add to my recording. I should have warned you we're recorded, so you'll be on the next one that comes up. But
No
I
problem.
appreciate you joining and coming with good questions, Debbie.
Okay. Thank you.
And as I told the other attendee, reach out directly anytime you need to. I'm Tyler T at bighairydog.com. We have a chat room that's a live chat with our staff in office. We don't have any robots or AI yet. Okay.
Okay.
Tech at bighairydog.com and service at bighairydog.com. Those are also all great ways to just reach out and start a casual chat with us without doing a full tech support call kind of thing.
Oh,
Right?
perfect. I appreciate that. Okay. Thank you so
Sure
much,
thing.
Taylor.
You're very welcome, Debbie. Have a great day, and
You
maybe
too.
we'll see you on the next one.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Good luck with your PI. Take
Okay.
care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.